And welcome back. Expeke taking to the stage as he's forced a deciding game 3. We're about to jump into this between Origen and Giants. Memento on screen there just at the end, walking to stage. He's had a pretty good performance so far, unfortunately. As a team, Giants fell behind in the mid-game, in game 2, which is why they ended up losing. Giants have picked blue side for the deciding game of this series. What are you expecting for picks and bans?
Well, I think Ziggs will have higher value this series. Like what we're seeing is that...
Ban-worthy or early pick-worthy?
Now, that's the big question mark, because I think that there are answers to Ziggs, but it depends on very much the support matchup. And we've actually seen a lot of investment towards the supports being banned away throughout this entire series. We even saw that Zyra ban in game 2 coming out from Origen to prevent this kind of answer to Ziggs.
All right, well, we'll find out as we go into Champ Select. Gragas off the bat is banned away from Giants. They banned Gragas, Shen, and Lulu in game number 1, a game which Giants won in 28 minutes. They were even until 20 minutes. Then they took 10 towers, multiple kills from 20 to 28 minutes. So, Giants, there we go. Shen as well.
Could we have it a guess and say that Lulu will be the final ban?
Oh, I'm so glad you were listening to me.
As you correctly predicted, so far the bans are similar to what we saw in game 1. If things continue to play out the way they are, Lulu and Malzahar are next to follow up.
But then what is first pick? Because Giants went Jace in game 1. Jace was huge for both Knights and Nahian, same again.
I agree. I think that Jace has been a very potent pick in this series. He's a very staple mid laner that scales very nicely. His poke combined with Ziggs is very strong, but it looks like Giants are actually going to shake things up.
Okay, so a little bit of upsetting the apple cart. Leduc on screen right now. A bit of a furled eyebrow, thinking about what to change, and he does not change his final ban. Malzahar is removed from the pool. This leaves Lulu available. I don't know if that's really first pick worthy. Jace would be the obvious answer here, as we've mentioned a lot. And then Origen will have to change something. The Renekton Elise play simply didn't cut it, and Wisdom's impact in the early game has been marginal. Very low.
I think it's been weak. I think it's fair to say in game 2, Wisdom died twice very early on to some very simple mistakes, and in game 1 he could not have the impact that he wanted because of how well Memento read. But now Memento is shaking things up. He's moved away from the Graves, and he's actually saying, you know what, Wisdom, I've had enough of your early game pressure. I'm going to bring out an early game champion, and I think I can have a bigger impact than you can.
And let's see if he can. Memento didn't need to in game number 1. He played very safe. His lanes played safe, and as a team, Giants won that game fairly clearly. Lulu not being banned has now been locked in again for Origen, and I mean, Jace is up there with Ziggs off the table. It means Jhin is up there as well, probably going to raise in priority as well.
Rengar is available too, Camille. We actually saw banned away in the second phase of game 1, but has not had at all any value throughout this series. But there we are. There is the Jace. I think that this is a great pick just naturally. He's been a high pick and ban throughout the regular season, especially with the lethality changes. He really has become a big staple part of any composition because he trades very well. He can go off into a side lane. He has big impact in team fights. There are just a bunch of different compositions that he can be going into. Now, if you're Giants, you need to look at your junglers, right? Like, oh, what am I talking about? At least it's already been locked in. They usually save it on for so long. But the Jhin makes a lot of sense, going for something a little bit safe in the form of Nautilus, so that you have an answer to the Jace who could also be flexed into both the mid and top.
And we've not seen that Ezreal since game 1, right? Tabs played it. Not the greatest performance. Wasn't really comboed up with that Nami exceptionally well. And if Jhin does get locked in here for Giants, what do Origen do in reply?
Well, I think the Ezreal makes a lot of sense. You could also go for an Ashe. That way you're picking actually a pretty good pushing lane when you compare it with the Lulu, and you also have a form of engagement as well. We did see an early prioritization of Ryze in game 1 from Origen, which was answered with a... was answered with the Jace, naturally, in game 1 for Giants. But given that they don't know the mid laner, I think that it would be pretty safe to pick your AD carry. Alternatively, you already know the enemy top lane pick, or you assume it's a top lane pick, but bear in mind that Huston has brought this Nautilus out a lot.
Yeah, let's see whether or not Giants decide to flex that. Jhin, Nautilus into something Lulu might end up being a little bit annoying. We'll find out. Ban away from Renekton. So Origen not 100% confident that Nautilus is going in the top lane, and obviously that ban is a gigantic signal.
Yep. Respecting the possibility of the flex. Looking at further bans, if you are Origen, you just continue banning away the top laners. I like the fact that Giants are banning away AD carries. We discussed the Ezreal. Ashe is likely to be the next ban to come out from Giants. And now, I'm wondering whether or not we're going to see a little bit more value in the Cassio going up against Wisdom. It is a very strong mid laner that has risen in popularity a lot recently, that does very naturally well early on into champions like Jace because of how quickly she can span that E, and she can move off into a side lane later on into the game, and she fits nicely with the exhaust, which Knight is currently hovering over.
Okay, so Cassiopeia then raises in priority if Knight wants to run that one. Origen need to lock in their AD carry, they need to lock in their jungler. Rengar is not available to them. And that means Wisdom will need to lean back on his potential Lee Sin, which he's run. I mean, technically, if you want to get super technical,
could be Rumble
could be there as well, is an option they could do. It is something that has fallen off in popularity a lot, but we do know Lulu Caitlyn, that is an obnoxious lane, especially if Hustler wants to run that Nautilus as well. So difficult to deal with the Lulu, the traps, the range, etc.
So the reason why they've gone Caitlyn over Ashe is because Caitlyn is better at setting up sieges, mainly because of the traps, the longer range, the good harass that she has with the Q. She's just better at setting up for taking down these towers, especially when you think Jace, Rumble, throw down the Equalizer, you have the Jace poke, you have all the traps as well. So much zone control can be used for Origen to just very swiftly take down these towers, very similar to a composition that they brought out in Game 2. Now, if your Giants round things out, I feel like a Cassio would fit very nicely here. It would do well into the Jace. You could also go for a Rise if you feel a little bit more towards the scaling end, if you want a little bit more team fight impact. But,
well, screw all of that.
Yeah, screw all of that. I dislike this pick greatly. I don't think it makes much sense in the comp that they have. I think that it is very risky. I think that if you are able to get a good early advantage and you can move off into side lanes, then the Zed pick can definitely work into a Jace. Often considered a pretty effective counter pick into the Jace. Will work nicely into the Rumble too, but you are so heavily reliant on setting up a 1-3-1 with this composition, finding picks, and just getting a very early advantage. 0 to 15 minutes is where Giants need to get a gold lead, otherwise they're in trouble.
Fortunately, Giants have had pretty strong early games over the course of their last few games, so they have shown they can do that, right? Yep. And now there's not going to be margin for error. Also, when you look at the damage compositions here from Giants, yes, Elise will do a fair amount of magic damage, but that is not a well-rounded damage source. It's 2 super tanks on the front line and a lot of physical damage.
Bear in mind, you actively picked Zed into Lulu. Lulu is considered one of the best counter pick in as far as supports go, because she gives health, she gives a shield, she can polymorph the Zed, and she can slow him to make it even more harder for the Zed to close the gap. I think this was such a big gamble from Knight, and if it pays off, then props to him. But I think this was a gamble that Giants did not need to take.
Well, it's a gamble that they're going to take. Knight adds to his champion pool, which is growing rapidly at this point in time. Zed locked in for Giants. Giants, remember, are 1 series win behind Roccat. They need to win against Origen now to tie, hold on to that 4th place safe spot as we head into week 8 next week. Origen, on the other hand, they're 2 series wins behind Vitality. A win here would be their first series win of the 2017 season. You know how to vote, you know where to vote. Let us know if you still are voting with Origen, because they've been leading the way in both of the previous games.
Everything is on the line for both these teams. Giants shifting up their play style. So far, they've been pretty safe with their previous compositions. Their game 1, I think, was the greatest example of that. Ziggs was the biggest factor in both teams' wins. Yep. And now that is off the board. Bottom lane will still be a big determining factor. When you look at the ability to push, definitely in favor of Origen's bottom lane. Early pushing will also go in the favor of Nahun in the mid, and exactly the same for the Rumble in the top lane. So Origen, they've set themselves up for success in the early game with all these pushing lanes, but at the same time, it makes it easier for Elise to look for these early ganks. So the onus is on Wisdom to set up good vision and to be able to read Memento, predict where he is likely to try and set up those early ganks.
Oh, that's not something that Origen have been able to do this series.
Not yet.
It's been Memento that's been able to read Wisdom, and you have talked about the pushing lanes, and Giants will be looking to set themselves up in that 1-3-1, double ignites on the side of Giants as well, so definitely going to play the go ham or go home mentality. And there's simply no way to get around that. And you can see those double ignites are mirrored by double exhausts, Nahyun and Xpeke.
And it's really going to make things difficult for Knight come the mid-game team fighting. As the game progresses, Exhaust is such a potent tool for shutting down assassins. We're not on the nerfed version yet, which is 7.5. We're still playing on 7.4. And I just want to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about this Zed versus Jace matchup, because it's not an incredibly common one that we see. And often, the reason why Zed is considered a very good pick into Jace is because he doesn't really have many tools to stop the all-in from Zed.
Oh, great hook.
Very good hook in the bottom lane, punishing the overextension from Peke. But I'm going to backtrack here.
Yeah, so the tools to punish in the mid lane.
Yep, because when you think of a champion like Ahri, the thing about Zed is when he ults, he's always going to go behind you. So you can instantly punish him by throwing a charm out, and that's going to mitigate a lot of his damage. It allows the Ahri to reposition. Nahyun doesn't really have that option. He can hit you with the hammer, but you can still get a lot of the damage down as a Zed. And when you move off to the side lane, Zed just naturally scales better in the amount of burst damage that he can get down compared to what Jace can do. The big advantage that Jace has is the range advantage and the little harass that he can put to put Knight down during the early laning.
All right, and how badly will that hurt Knight? That's what we're going to look at, and whether or not Memento can help. Scuttle Crab secured here by Memento as Sartorius and Wisdom were moving through the river. Flaxish on this top lane, Maokai. This is a pick that has fallen quite sharply off in play. Obviously on 7.4, received some nerfs, that sapling damage removed, and some other tanks being more popular. Nautilus actually was one of them, and that's what we were talking about, how Nautilus was that flex pick for hustling in the bottom lane. This time round, that dredge line just short of Xpeke. And we'll see who's going to have a bigger impact, because there's different styles. Origen have got this difficult to play comp. They've got pushing lanes. They have to deal with a very tanky front line of Maokai.
See, now, I would disagree with you,
Okay.
Quickshot. I actually think that Origen have the much easier to execute composition, because during the laning phase, they will constantly be pushing in on Giants, right? So they will naturally build up an advantage through whether it be farm or pressure. Origen will be the ones that are in control of the game early on. It is Giants that are expected to be able to get an early lead from somewhere, because they're not going to get it from the natural laning phase. They can't afford to be passive and scaling. They need to look for ganks. They need to look for their own kind of pressure, and they need to force it to happen.
Okay, force the plays then. And I guess that's also true then, the more complex nature of setting up a 1-3-1. The more complex nature of playing around Knight and when he is powerful. Right now is not that time. He needs to get a few levels up. His Wisdom's going to move into the Krugs. Has been spotted out. He's hustling and Hiku. They're going to set up a bit of a play here. Blast cone over the wall. Wisdom just ward hops. Insta-flash here from Hustlin. Hustlin's got an Ignite. Dredge line. Dragon. Sonic Wave comes backwards and actually going to help out. I wonder if Ignite would have helped out. Long range shot. Wisdom escapes with his life.
We saw this from Wisdom in game 2, trying to go for these invades without the proper support. While both Tabs and Peke were pushing in, he invaded at the worst possible time because the minion wave had just been neutralized. So Tabs and Peke were still clearing out that wave, weren't able to properly help him out. Nahyun also wasn't in a proper position to come down and push because, again, the wave had been neutralized out. And while it was slightly safer, again, it's just this looking at the map. I just feel like Wisdom in this early game isn't really respecting his opponents.
Well, talking about respecting his opponents and Wisdom and Memento, we've looked very, very closely at the junglers. Don't do it again.
I wasn't going to say it.
We've looked very closely at the junglers this series because they have been very impactful. And I want to talk about their jungle proximity and how it's changed from game 1 to 2. And we'll keep an eye on how it plays out in game 3. Now, a reminder, jungle proximity, the amount of time that a jungler spends around their laners. And if you look at the numbers, in both game 1, both Memento and Wisdom spent a small amount of time within 2,000 range of their laners in the laning phase, between 3 and 15 minutes. Game 2, it both stepped up. there's a lot of context around those numbers that makes it interesting, right? Because Memento didn't need to spend time around his laners because they responded so well to Wisdom in game 1, and he was able to gain an advantage by farming. But in game 2, tried to spend time with his laners, but was less successful in finding kills and ganks.
He was, but again, it just goes back to show that Memento does such a great job of reading what Wisdom is trying to do, and that's why not only the analyst desk, but other players have shown a lot of respect towards Memento as a jungler, because he really is very smart in terms of being able to read the enemy jungle, understand what is going on around the map, and being able to react accordingly. And so if he identifies that the enemy jungler is all about ganking, then he's going to match that. He's going to be there, and he's just going to spend that extra bit of time to make sure that he's getting the initial ward set up, and he's there to counter gank and make sure that his laners are safe and healthy, so they have a better transition into the mid game.
Let's see whether or not he can do it this game, Vedius. First backs have already been completed. A number of boots picked up. Ninja Tabai for Nahyun, going to be doubly effective. Soreta Dirks picked up for Knight and Hikyu, as well as those Swifty boots, as we're seeing on Jins more and more frequently. Nothing really exciting just yet.
Do you know what is exciting?
Tell me what's exciting.
What I find really exciting is the fact that both these teams are one win away from having massive implications for the rest of the season. The fact that Origen are within one game's reach of winning their first series. Giants, if they secure this, they equalize things out with Roccat. I think the implications of not only this series, but this game has on the overall standings are just a really exciting thing for them.
I agree, and while we talked about Giants rather, being 0-8, now 0-9 in game 2s, Origen broke that streak. They won their first game 2 in a series, all split long, and they won their first game on Thursday. That's all year long. Will this be their first series win? Wisdom wants to make it so. Gonna look to ward hop over the wall. Actually doesn't even need to, because Flaxish did not run. Vengeful Maelstrom's gonna buy some time. Wisdom's got the kick available, but is slightly awkwardly placed. We jump to the river. Nahyun's in trouble. He's coming to support, but Knight pops him, and Flaxish turns it around. Oh, they're not done yet. Now Sartorius is in a little bit of trouble. He's got a flash available to him. The damage from Knight is very, very big. Uses that shadow dash away. Flash from the cocoon. Memento and Flaxish gonna chase. Sending out the spiderlings. You need to sink the fangs in. Memento survives.
And Giants get 3 very quick kills. We talked about how Giants needed this early game lead. And what do you know? They go and find it. They set up a great gank in the middle lane. They turn around to dive in the top lane, and Giants have gotten themselves a 1,000 gold lead 8.5 minutes into this game. So you can see Nahyun, he's making the map movement top to try and support the dive that is coming out from the rest of his team. But Memento, he's there preemptively to stop the interrupt, and Flaxish, he's able to get himself this turnaround onto Wisdom. There was a big minion wave, but it's a Maokai. He's so difficult to gank. The setup from Origen was not as ideal as they had wanted, and then they round things out with a final kill onto Rumble.
It's not the first time that we've seen Wisdom and Sartorius not successfully work together on a dive or a gank or an attempt. They simply do not appear to have synergy. We saw that last week, we saw that earlier on Thursday, and right now it actually costs Wisdom his life. And then if we take a step back, Giants reading not only the dive in the top lane, but the potential roam from Nahyun. Memento and Knight just in the right place at the right time, Vedia.
But let's think about what this means now for the game, because Knight, he's already well on his way to completing the Ghost Blade at about 12 minutes into the game. Well, both junglers actually hanging around the mid lane. They're just going to walk away. But this also means that Flaxish, he's now already completed his Spectre's Cowl. Look at all this magic resistance he's now sitting on into a Rumble. This shifts the matchup heavily in the top lane. The mid lane, Nahyun can't just freely push now because he doesn't have his exhaust available. Knight is level 8 with a level advantage, and he's the one that can start playing aggressively. So these pushing lanes that should go heavily in favor of Origen, all of that pressure is now being lost because of the advantages that Giants have just gotten themselves.
And that means that Giants, with their more difficult composition to execute, have got an advantage early where they needed to. So step one of what needs to happen to win the series has happened. Where do they need to press this advantage further? Obviously, more kills, Tower First Blood would be good.
It would help.
Yeah. But who's going to set that up, you know? Do Giants want to tower dive? They don't really have the greatest. Maybe, I guess, Memento Knight could look to double team Nahyun.
For now, you need to just hold on to the laning phase for a little longer, because while the start of these itemization builds are good, you want to complete them before you try and force any more plays. The best place to look, I would argue, would actually be the top half of the map. Try and shut down this Rumble as much as possible so that he's in such a deficit that you can even send Flaxish off into a side lane against him. The annoying thing about Rumble is that he will just always push into these tanks. So if you can get Flaxish to a point where he's so strong, he can actually out-trade the Rumble, that's going to better or make it easier for Giants to set up the 1-3-1, because Knight will be able to out-duel Nahyun, Flaxish will be able to out-duel Sartorius, and that means you can send your 3-man unit of Heq, Huston, and Memento in the mid lane and just start pushing all these waves and exerting all this pressure across the map.
Keep an eye on the proximity of Memento then, and whether or not he decides to agree on the top lane pressure. But 1-0-1, he's ahead, 300 gold, thanks to the kill and the assist. Under his name, thank you, Observers. Toggling that one over. Pretty even in the top lane. 500 gold for Knight in this mid lane. And even Stevens in the bottom lane. 115 CS for Hiku's Jin into Tabs' Caitlyn. We've not looked at this duo lane a lot over the last few minutes, because obviously it's a fairly neutral farm lane, but Tabs and Peke have continuously pushed up, and you can see the support as they've now backed away to Dragon.
But I actually find that quite impressive, given that the amount of pushing power that this OG bottom lane has. They barely chipped the turret, and now Giants, they're looking for a collapse.
All right, dredge line forward for Huston. He takes a Dragon's Rage kick to the face. Cocoon falls just a little bit short, and Curtain Call unable to find a kill for now. Flaxish is teleported into the bottom lane, and Sartorius did not. So Sartorius continues the pressure and the push. Origen do not get Dragon.
And Flaxish, though, he's waiting.
Why? Face check. Expek is in trouble. Flash dredge line. Peke looks to go down. That's the 4th kill of the game for Giants. Wisdom is the target as Flaxish and Hustle and Memento looking to set it up. You can't escape Meow Kai. It's like a horrible Nyan Cat reference. Wisdom goes down.
A double kill for Flaxish, 3-0-0. And this early game is falling apart for Origen. They needed to just keep things stable. They needed to just play the passive game, and they have tried to make things happen, and it has just gone wrong. Origen, they try to make this Baron happen. They look at the vision on the Baron, right? Or around this play, there is a ward just sitting there behind the Dragon Pit, waiting for Giants to teleport in. Knight ends up failing his shadow over the wall. Maybe that could have resulted in a kill, but regardless, it doesn't matter, because Peke just face checks the brush. He doesn't respect the possibility of Giants lying in wait, and he ends up falling prey to the CC chain that Giants has available to them. But it's just the fact that, why are Origen going for that Dragon? Just, there's no need to try and force that objective.
And to come back to the face check as well, it started the ensuing double kill here for Flaxish, who's now 3-0 on Rumble. With so much on the line, so much at stake, you have to play with an air of caution. You have to go for the safer play.
And you speak about safety. Let's have a look at Jace for a second. That is a Sterix Gauge into Armor Boots, Ninja Tabai, right from the get-go. That is not how you're going to win this matchup. Sure, you might survive against the Zed, but he's now going to be given all this freedom. He's just going to be scaling up so easily without any concern for this Jace moving forward. And it just shows you how fun, how reserved Nahyun now has to play.
But how delayed does this make Nahyun's damage and power spike?
Significantly delayed.
Like, are we talking 2 more items, 15 minutes? You know, it's Jace only going to come online around 30
You'll need
minutes.
a Kayn sooner than he does damage. That's how much delayed that will be.
Well, that's going to be difficult then, because Nahyun needs to pick up this win here for Origen. If they lose 2 series, that's what they need to win. This is the last game of cross-group play here, right? Origen going to be sitting in Group B, and they'll start playing Vitality and Splice, H2K, Unicorns for the last 3 weeks of the split. And they need to find wins against Vitality and 2 more teams if they want to try to climb ahead, and that's just going to be so much less likely. Giants get a tower, Origen get a dragon. Origin are 4,000 gold down at 15 minutes.
The thing is, this actually opens up the map a lot more. So now what you can do, if you want to, you can actually rotate your Jhin and your Nautilus round to the mid lane. You can also then send Flaxish down bottom. He has a tower. He should be able to wave clear fairly fine for the time being. And then you have the Zed just start pushing up towards the top. Invest a lot of vision towards this top half of the map. The problem for Giants is there's no real objective for them to play around other than this mid tower. So if they can just have that top minion wave pushed all the way underneath the tower, keep Sartorius underneath his tier 2, that better sets up for Knight to come in from a flank and then maybe go for a potential dive. Look to try and take that mid tower away from Origen.
And hopefully that can then snowball to further advantages, but Origen need to do so many steps here to make that work. At 15 minutes, Giants, this was their largest gold lead. At 15 minutes in the last 12 games. So very, very good start. And that gold lead was earned, first of all, by punishing a play from Origen, right? The reactionary play. And then secondarily to that, punishing a call to go for Dragon. So both big game impacting moments from Giants has been reacting better to something Origen tried to do.
Yep. And that just comes back to what we were talking about in game 1, where a lot of what Origen tried to do, the idea was right, but it was always the execution that ended up falling short. And unfortunately for Origen, this has been a problem for them throughout the regular season, as now Sartorius.
Oh, he's going to look to get shut down. Look at that. Cocoon, Living Shadow, gets Knight in range, and he picks up a very easy kill. Second of the game. This will unlock that inner turret in the bottom lane. This will be the third tower of the game for Giants as Wisdom forced to run away. This is a 3-on-1. The last time Wisdom tried to dive Flaxish, he died. And you can see the hesitation there.
And Giants changing up the playbook a little bit. They sent Knight bot. They used Memento to get himself a dive onto Sartorius. Very clean takeaway. And Origen, they were nowhere near to react. They couldn't save him.
Vedius, this difficult to play team comp becomes much easier when you have such a huge gold lead.
Yeah, yes,
and your carry and your tank are so fed pre-20 minutes.
Yep. But this pretty much is what we were talking about, right? Like, Giants needed the 0 to 15-minute gold advantage. That's what they had to have. It was them that needed to force the play. And Origen made it easy for them. Origen tried to set up a dive top when they didn't need to.
Is maybe in trouble here. Flashes away defensively. Not going to be able to find anything, but Equalizer on cooldown means he is able to escape with his life. And good play here for Giants. Knight has still not left the bottom lane. Got a control ward in that little bush in the bottom lane tower area. And just looking to blow somebody up. I mean, that's what he wants to do.
He's level 12. He has Ignite. There is no Zhonya's yet completed for Sartorius. If he were to get a kill onto anyone, he could definitely still do it onto the Rumble. But now we get to see a repeat of the dive. Sartorius, he's actually just here to wave clear. I think he's actually looking at the minion wave and not what's happening behind him until he ends up getting demolished.
That sucks.
That does suck.
That really does suck. Just trying to sit back and
he even did the safe approach, right, where he's like, I'm going to clear a wave from far away, and then I'll be fine. And then there was a spider lady behind you.
Yeah, spider lady, giant diver, and then a deadly ninja.
Yep.
And they combo to give Giants their 6th kill of the game. 6-0. 33,000 gold to 29,000. Origen got themselves at least a Mountain Drake, but it'll be a very long time before they can get anything else. And with the help of Curtain Call and the threat of an engage, Giants secure their 4th tower. Vedius, it's getting to 20 minutes. Origen need to be... they need to do something magical, not only to bounce back, but hell, to avoid a perfect game.
Origen needs what Origen did in Game 2, where Giants just stagnate. They decide that Baron is their only win condition, and it stalls out for another 20-30 minutes for the Origen composition to be able to come online. Because Nahyun, he's still... I mean, okay, now he's got his Yomu's Ghostblade, which will give him a bit more damage, but the fact that he's still sitting on the Sterix gauge means that compared to the Zed, who's now just completed his Edge of Night, he's going to be so much stronger. The Maokai is by far and above, way ahead of Sartorius, and this Jhin has hit a much sooner spike than Tabs will on the Caitlyn. So Origen, they're looking at 3-4 items before they can even challenge this lineup of Giants.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to get that time. Giants have played so well around the map, applying pressure. Look at the vision again on the mini-map. All series long, Giants have had what feels like superior vision. And even in cases if it was even or not, they've played around Origen's team members. You know, Wisdom, again, 0-2-0. He's not having a good series today and has not had any level of impact to try and claw Origen out of this situation.
We should not beat around the bush. The reality is Wisdom really has underperformed in this series. I had some expectations for him, like being reminded of his challenger days, maybe some early junglers, but now we look at the setup from Giants. There is no vision from OG. There are a lot of pings from Giants that want to make this play happen.
Yeah, the ward is going to be killed out here by Peke. Hustlin, Memento, Hiku, they're just waiting to land some CC. While all that's going on up in the top lane, Knight picks a fight at Nahyun. Nahyun went for the flash actually to get away. Wisdom is now caught out by the Cocoon. He's able to escape. Wisdom and Tabs make their way out. 1-2 flashes used on the side of Origen. That's going to make them juicier targets as this X-Pek is going to get caught down. Didn't quite see how that one worked and doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Pop
no
goes
jungle.
the Yordle.
Yep.
There goes X-Pek. He even had his flash up, but it wasn't enough. Now 5 members strong. Giants, they're looking to take down this tier 2 in the top. I'd like to give more analysis, but it's just Giants owning that half of the jungle. And now Wisdom.
Wisdom's going to look for Memento. He jumps in. The hammer comes down from Nahyun. Wisdom is dead. Knight survives. He dashes away. Finally gets dropped down. Nahyun puts the hammer to the face and Tabs firing auto attacks for days. Sartorius' equalizer helped out, but here comes Flaxish. He's looking for Nahyun if he can. Not a huge amount of armor to work with as Hiku gets chunked down by the shock blast. Deadly Flourish secures the kill, waiting to channel that one. Flaxish is now looking to escape, and yes, there's some kills on the board. Origen, they bounce back.
I like the move from Wisdom. I mean, they're already falling behind. Why not just try and force a play? Origen, they are successfully able to get themselves a couple of kills. They're not quite able to defend the turret, but it's nice to see Origen not just leaning over and dying. They've still got some fight left in them. And you can see here, they're at a numbers disadvantage. They don't have the looter, but Wisdom goes in thinking that, hey, we have enough follow-up. Now, I criticized the build path from Nahyun, but you're actually going to see it actually keep him alive here. As Knight goes in, he gets the shield and the extra health back to actually turn that around and enable Tabs to get himself a double kill. Now, this will help in terms of his ability to complete some of those big items, head more towards the mid-game, but the fight ends up equaling out. It ends up being overall a 3-for-3, 3-for-2 even. But
yeah, 3-for-2.
But the fact that Giants still get that tower, the fact that Giants are still going to get themselves this dragon, means that it will still be a net gain in favor of Giants.
And look at the team fight damage there. Knight unable to make anything stick. He threw a lot of his cooldowns onto Nahyun in that 1v1 earlier, so less impactful. And also, Zeds are generally not amazing in team fights.
No.
Definitely not looking for him to do that.
It was funny when Knight, because he used his shadow to get in between the destroyed tower, and Tabs had actually put a trap by the side. So he was like, choose your poison.
Yes. What would you like to do? So Origen, a small breath of life here. They got that Mountain Drake earlier. They've got themselves 2 kills, so they're not going to get perfect gamed. They've not given up, and they do have a lot of damage and team fight power where necessary. The problem is, it's going to be very difficult to set up easily, right? Because point and click CC from Maokai, from Nautilus, if they misstep at all, then all of a sudden Giants can lock them down and either disengage or try to set up kills.
But now look at this setup from Giants. Baron is on their eyes, right? Now, their siege is not the strongest. There's a fair amount of wave clear on Origen, so going for the Baron and playing around this objective is fine, but they should not use the Baron as a means to force a fight. What they should do is just control vision, wait for Origen to overstep, and look for picks. Look to punish the oversteps from Origen like Peke right now.
All right, there's no one to follow up, though. Hustlin, he's going to take a little bit of a trade from that Glitter Lance, and looking at the rest of the menu, now Peke gets locked down. Pretty good equalizer from Sartorius. He gets knocked up by the depth charge, and Hustlin running away for his life. Memento's able to flash to safety and control vision, find picks, kill picks wielder Peke.
And it's Peke that gets caught out once again. I feel like this is a narrative that we've used since the summer of last year, Trevor. And now with 5 members strong, Giants are looking to work their way towards that tier 2 in the mid.
Yeah, they really are. This is the last tower outside the base. At 25 minutes, I mean, Giants are just playing so well this game. They've accelerated their lead. It's going to be just shy of 9,000 gold at 25 minutes. Only the inhibitor turrets standing now for OG to fall back to. And now maybe Giants can look towards that Baron with no more towers and force OG towards them, check into the darkness, and then set up another
It's
kill.
rinse and repeat, right, for Giants. There's no need to... And I love the fact that Giants went for the tower rather than going for a gamble Baron. They're making the smart approach, and I feel like we're seeing the difference between the teams. Giants were behind against Origen, who had such a dominant lead and such a powerful comp, but it ended up taking 50 minutes for Origen to close out the game. Whereas Giants, they have a lead, they know exactly what they need to be doing with their composition, they're executing upon it, and they're translating that into an advantage that is furthering and furthering their control over the map.
I agree with that. I think all the inner turrets are great examples. You know, finding the kill on Sartorius, taking bottom tower. Applying pressure on the top, yes, albeit Giants lost the team fight. However, they got the tower. Then finding a pick on Peke, unlocked the mid tower. But now the next hurdle is much more difficult, right? You can't play around at the same level of darkness when you're heading up to the inhibitor turret. And if OG decide to turtle and just use this Hurricane, Caitlyn, and Jace abilities to wave clear, then Giants need to figure out a creative solution to getting the turtle outside of the shell and killing it.
And that's why you use Baron, right? You're just like, come, be enticed. We have purple things. You should come and check them out.
Let's see what Giants do. In terms of damage, they've got a fair amount of damage to work with. I mean, Zed obviously very well fared. Jin is decent, but they're not the greatest Baron team.
No, it's not. You really do need at least Wisdom to be dead, and ideally you want Sartorius to be dead as well. You want a lot of people dead from OG before you really commit. And speaking of dead,
there's Wisdom. He's going to get killed. Very easy. Origen are still just dawdling around. Flaxish has found tabs. This is monumentally bad. Origen to donate 2 kills, dancing in the darkness to Giants.
Well, it's not Sartorius, but I think Giants will be happy. A big damage dealer from Origen is gone. The smite has been taken away. That is more than enough for Giants to say, I think that we can grab ourselves the Baron, and there is going to be little to no contest from Origen.
There is no contest. Origen are simply not there. It's 28 minutes into the game. Giants have got one gigantic hammer, and they are putting the final nails in the coffin of Origen's split. If Origen do not find a way to bounce back, if Origen are 2 series down, they need the biggest miracle to avoid the promotion tournament.
They do. Things are looking dire for Origen right now. And this is the utilization of Vision. Wisdom walking through his jungle, which he has no control over. And it seems to be a story for Wisdom. In their series versus Rocket, it was he that was consistently getting caught out. It was OG not properly utilizing the wars that they had and recognizing the positioning of their opponents that end up costing them that series versus Rocket, and now Giants are doing the same thing. Immaculate vision control. Maybe a little bit too much vision control. Hey, throwing a lot of wards.
Don't you dare start to complain about too much vision.
There are 3 wards in that bush, Trevor.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. But nowhere else are you allowed to complain. And for Giants, it's been a very good game against a struggling team, okay? Game 3, deciding game where they needed to show up. Demonstrating they really had Origen's number. All series long, Giants have sort of responded and played well around Giants. And they need to do the same. Hiku gets caught out. Yeah, very good play by Wisdom. Just as we're praising Giants, this will at least delay any further pushes.
That was a beautiful kick from Wisdom, but at the same time, you have to wonder what Hiku was doing that far up in the mid lane. You do want to be setting up the 1-3-1, but you hadn't properly set up your sideways. I mean, like, now perfectly would be the time to start sieging with the Jhin, and instead, Hiku ends up getting caught out. Shame on you, Mr. Hiku. We'll delay the siege from Giants. Bear in mind, there's only a minute and a half left on that Baron buff. I wonder if Giants will actually be able to use this to actually crack into the base of OG.
Well, we'll find out. Mountain will help ever so slightly. It doesn't feel like Baron will, and this is just a good play from Wisdom this time around.
Yeah, it really was. It's the acknowledgement of Hiku being out of position, and recognizing they can capitalize on it. Far too much damage for Hiku to be able to get out. Did burn his heal, and it will result in the delay for Origen, which is exactly what they need to do. They need to buy time, they need to wait. 3-4 items is what they're looking for. Sartorius well on his way to completing that Void Staff, which will really help him a lot. And bear in mind, the big thing to note is actually there's not a massive gap in terms of experience. One level down from each of the OG members definitely hurts them, but at least they're staying as close as they possibly can given the deficit that they're under.
Yeah, and the 10,000 gold.
Bright side, Trevor, bright side.
10,000 gold difference, and Baron-empowered minions. Tabs and Nahyun doing what they can to wave clear. Wisdom takes so much damage. Deathmark comes down. He's rooted in place thanks to the Deadly Flourish, and Knight's able to escape. Gets the kill with the pop. Pop goes the Weasel. Now the inhibitor turret in the top lane is being focused. This will be dropping without contest. Equalizer. But a flesh wound to Giants. And where did Peke go? I didn't even see. Giants get their 14th kill. They get an inhibitor. And are they going to look for more?
It looks like it. The teleport is coming in from Flaxish. They're utilizing this minion to continue their siege, but have they overstayed their welcome? I don't think they have.
I don't think they have either. Nahyun and Tabs trying to stop. There's no equalizer. Sartorius goes golden. Flamespitter's buying time. Giants look like they're going to take down Origen. Giants, they kill Sartorius on the side lane. It's a killing spree for Knight as Tabs gets dunked. Double kill for Knight. Nahyun's respawned, shooting as much as he can. That's going to force Flaxish away. The rest of Giants are low. They're looking for the minion wave.
The Giants' Baron buff has ran out. There is no minion wave left. And while they get a lot of kills, they're not able to get onto the Nexus of Origin, so they hold on for now. And Wisdom may be able to pick up one more kill, but what does it matter when you look at the grand scheme of things? That is a broken base for Origin. That is one Nexus turret left for Origin. And they are running out of hope.
Yeah, there's nothing left to fall back to, and Giants are going to be so happy with this play. Wisdom too far forward.
So this is just Knight and the team realizing that Wisdom, he's not tanky enough, we can easily pop him. And speaking of popping, watch Knight as he's managed to delete Expeke. Now, remember, Expeke has no resistances. Knight is level 17 to level 12. And all he's going to do is he's going to proc the Thunderlords, he's going to make use of his passive, and show you a magic trick.
Yeah, Hiku got the 4th shot as well.
Yeah, well, I want to give all the credit tonight,
My
but
word.
really does help when you have a giant crit in the face.
You could say Expeke was deleted.
I mean, you could say
That's
that,
a retro one.
but then I would sound just like Quickshot.
You would. Quickshot bingo, if anyone remembers it. But what does this mean for Giants, right? They've got one more
It
push.
means they're really far ahead.
One more push for Giants. They win the game. They win the series, okay? And that also means they tie with Roccat. 2 wins, 7 losses. We have touched on the Vitality implications, and you know, it is very frustrating and difficult to deal with. But in the context of where we are now in the standings, Vedius, Giants have a game difference score of -10. So they've lost 10 more games than they've won.
Right.
Roccat have lost 15 more games than they have won. And if, you know, tiebreaker scenarios come into play later in the split, that game difference is going to help Giants out. The fact that they have taken games from teams in game 1s, quite famously, is going to play into their favor in securing that 4th spot. That's what Giants are looking to set up, is in order to do that, they've got to kill a Nexus.
And right now, they are continuing their siege onto the base of Origin. You can see that Knight has been moved off to a side lane. A lot of big items have been completed, and this is where Giants have to be careful because it is 35 minutes into the game. Origin still have a lot of damage with which they can turn this fight around, but
look at that.
so does the combo of Knight and Memento as Peke gets forced back, and it looks like Giants are sieging onto the inhibitor.
Yeah, curtain calls available for Hiku if he needs to use it. No other ultimates used from Giants. Nahyun gets at least one accelerated shock blast down, but it's not going to be enough to dissuade or stop or not even slow down Giants. Look at that. They just shrug it off. Take the shot to the jaw. Redemption's going to come down as well from Origen. This kills off the cannon minion, and Giants continue the pressure.
And look at the top lane. That inhibitor has already gone down. Those super minions are making their way onto those Nexus towers. Origen have to send someone to go and clear it, and that is when Giants will strike.
After 2 minutes of sieging, Nahyun's shock blasts are slowly starting to chip Hiku's HP away. Nexus turret, number 1, rather number 2, the last one remaining. He's under pressure. Nahyun's on the back line trying to protect. Sartorius has already used the equalizer. And look at those Caitlyn traps. They're just sidestepped. Flexish has gone in with tabs down. This should be the final fight. Knight gets turned into a munchkin. Not even an exhaust can stop the damage from coming down. Sartorius is dead. The inhibitor as well. The Nexus turret is the focus. A 5-man giant stack put a huge foot up the bottom of Origen. And Giants are one step closer to the summer split.
Giants drafted a difficult to play composition. Knight bringing out the Z. A very risky pick. But they make it work. Memento demonstrating his early game dominance. 3 kills right off the bat for Giants.
Compliments of Origen.
Compliments of Origen.
You have to talk about that. Oh, Giants.
They should be happy, though.
It's a tough week. It's a bitter, sweet week.
It is.
But Giants hold on to 4th place for now. They finish their cross-group play. 2 series wins, 7 series losses, and 4 more games until the end of the split, and they will be playing Roccat, Fnatic, Misfits, and G2.
The bright side out of all of this is that we saw some immaculately clean League of Legends from Giants, especially in Game 1. The way in which they utilized vision, the way in which they set up a lot of the plays, their understanding of how to use their composition was great to see. And this was a Giants that we wondered how well they would do at the very start because they did show promising signs, winning a lot of Game 1s against some of the stronger teams here in Europe. But then they could never really close things up and they could never refine their play style. But it seems that we really have seen some genuine growth from this Giants roster.
I agree, and Expected, the man on your screen right now, definitely showing improvement with Origen. The problem is, it's probably too little too late. They have to make up 2 series to catch Vitality in the 4th spot, and I don't know if they can. Anyways, with that result locked in, we've reached the conclusion of the cross-group phase of the spring split. Let's join H2K's Prolly and the gang for a look back and a look forward to post-game lobby.
Welcome to the post-game lobby where I'm joined by Mitch Cripple of Esports and H2K's Neil Prolly. Hamad, thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. And
I was just drafted H2K. I'm glad you got the update.
We got it. Prolly, H2K coach. Let's take a look at week 7 of the EULCS spring split. It was the last week of cross-group play, and when we look back at the standout series from this week, we had to look first at the rematch of the Summer Split Finals, G2 versus Splyce. In Game 1, it looked like Splyce perhaps had come back to some of their form. Trashy was on the Gragas. It started to look better for Splyce.
Yeah, so this was the first time G2 faced off against Splyce since that finals in Krakow, and a lot of questions were there around Trashy. You know, his engage, his voice within the Splyce lineup. He was drafted an early engaged champion with Wunder on a strong winning top laner, and I think that worked very well for Splyce. Now, in the second game, the game kind of ended early. Like, this particular invade here after a kill in the bottom lane made it so that Trashy just, like, he went for a panic play. They should never start these Raptors, and G2 had a super clean up, so it went all the way to a game 3 to in the end decide what would end up happening, but I think it still showed that G2 was the superior team.
Yeah, I mean, I still like to see what Splyce has done from where they came from, but it's still clear that since G2 never really regressed the way Splyce did, they're still kind of ahead of Splyce right now. So this is kind of just G2's, you know, nothing too different than what they've been normally doing. And I mean, this is just Sven getting back into form again, you know.
Right, Game 2 and 3 was business as usual, right? And Sven playing the Ezreal. Bang makes it look easy over in Korea, but Sven, the European domestic equivalent, I think.
I mean, that wasn't Sven playing, that was G2 Niels right there.
Yeah, that was G2 Niels more like it.
Back.
And a great performance overall from Sven in that series. But the second series we wanted to highlight a little closer to home for a part of this analyst desk. Probably 2-0 victory over Misfits. You guys made it look pretty easy.
Yeah, I just drafted a really strong bot lane that just gets dive for free, and we take, we take some farm on the top side. So I was really happy about this play. Nuclear and Che did a great job dying down here. They had no other play. And this is, the mad scientist Jankos solo dives in with GA to bait a fight.
It takes a true genius to know that he has GA available and then the Kha'Zix passive on the ulti to really lure in the honestly unsuspecting opponent here in Misfits.
Yeah, I mean, this is, don't play your cards, play your opponent. He knew they want to fight me, they want to kill me. So he just goes in and gives him the free kill. And it turns well. And this is, Febby does the exact same thing, walks into an Ari Charm for fun and dies. And this is just, my team playing on a separate level where they can 4v5 these fights, and they just need them to come to him.
It looked a lot more simple than we expected. Is that fair to say, probably from your side? Were you expecting more out of Misfits?
Yeah, I don't know. I expected that this would be a lot harder for my players, but they just played so well. They kind of made it look really easy. And
Game 2 was helped by the invade though, because this would have been a nice game, I think, stylistically, early game versus late game. But the damage Jankos did to the economy of Misfits in the early game was just like way too much.
yeah, and then even the dives top, this is something that like Misfits were doing to other teams and making it look really good. So it was satisfying having us being able to just dive Alfari twice in a row in this game. But I expected them to have these kind of things like covered on their end where, they can make the play, but it won't happen to them. So I was really surprised we were able to do these plays so seamlessly.
A lot of that H2K playmaking coming from Jankos as well. You were talking about some of the early pathing. That's why Jankos got player of the game for that series. So overall, a solid week for H2K, but after 4 weeks of cross-group battles, we need to take a look at how Group A, Group B shake up as they're about to fight inside the groups once again. When we look at those standings, I mean, Group A, G2 undefeated still. It's been a good split for them so far.
And they have a two series buffer, and if they were to tie the Misfits, there is still that massive game differential that's helping them as well. So they're definitely in a good spot. But I'm looking personally at H2K right here, plus 11 win-loss in the game differential, solidly in first place, looking for growth. The bot lane is willing to sacrifice themselves, which is a whole new story.
Yes. They want to win. They don't want to win lane, they want to win the game. So this is our time. We play at UOL next, so it's really going to show in the standings how we do next week.
There was a little movement at the bottom of the table as well, with Giants and Rocket exchanging positions throughout the week, but unfortunately for Origen fans, 0-9 on series still, despite picking up 2 important game wins this week to break some of those losing streaks. We're going to take a closer look at the state of the league, so if you're joining us in the client, be sure to hit up youtube.com/LolEsports for the extended edition of the post-game lobby. It's been a big week for teams, though, and teams looking to get those wins, looking to climb the standings. We're actually going to head over and check in with Quickshot. He's standing by with Giants Man in the Jungle.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yes, I am here with Memento. First of all, congratulations on the win, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Games 1 and 3 against Origen just looked clean and easy for Giants, and specifically how you reacted to Wisdom's pressure. How and why was it so simple?
Well, there aren't many paths that you can take in the jungle these days, so the most normal one is that the enemy clears Raptors, red, then he takes his blue, and then he goes for enemy Krogs. And when you do this on bot side, it's really risky, so the bot lane can always collapse. So I always tell my bot lane that they can just check their Krogs, and they can just force anything, like they can just force his flash. Most of the times you get his flash, or he has to retreat, he gets real low, and then we get free vision of the jungler, we know where he is.
Is this something that you can only do against a team who is struggling like Origen, or is this something that you can apply to really any of the teams in the league?
Anyone, actually, because a lot of junglers are greedy. They want the Krogs. They give gold. Like, everyone wants them. And that's really easy, especially with Raptors as well. So we just predicted where Wisdom is going to go, and I told them to check every camp, and we can always fight over that, and we can just catch them.
So, Memento, it's been a bittersweet week. Yes, you have now taken down Origen and, tied Rocket for 4th place in the group. But you could have had another series win. Obviously, the bug, game-impacting bug, caused the remake. And then you guys went on to lose the series. Yeah. What was that like for you and how you felt at the time?
I mean, it was devastating, because when you're in a pause, you sit there for like 20 minutes, and we wanted to play so clean, and we've been practicing so hard, and we just wanted to play the clean, like, I honestly destroyed Joker as well there. So we had everything we needed, So when they paused the game and we're at Nash, we're about to do Nashor. So I'm sitting there for 20 minutes, and you can't talk during pauses, so it's like mentally you can't
It's
even.
exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And then we sit there. I sit there for 20 minutes. I think everyone in my team just sits there for 20 minutes, and we're thinking of every possible scenario that could happen. We do Nash. If they come, we flash over. We do this, and then we can play for bottom turret in mid, and we can get a free dragon. We can put deports on our bot side. We can do this, and we sit there thinking for 20 minutes, and then the referee says, "It's a remake," and then everyone's head just. We just went mental boom, and honestly. I'm not going to give it an excuse. We are professionals. We should be able to actually perform and handle this. But it was really, because I've never been through something like this. Because in my head, I was on my way home. I was like, this game's over. I'm already home. I'm going to go home and watch some more LCS or something. I knew the game was over. And then they say remake, and then everyone was like super frustrated. Everyone was super angry, and we were like, oh my God, I can't believe this was a remake. And then we get 5 minutes to choose new side and new draft and do and untilt, and that's just unacceptable, honestly. Like, we should honestly postpone the match to another day so everyone could calm down. And I think that was really, like mentally exhausting for us.
And I respect your honesty in saying that, yes, maybe in the remake, not tilting would have helped. And I also think it has started a discussion. We are talking about the scenario and how it happened, but unfortunately, within the context of the rules, in the rule set, Vitality bounced back, and it means you guys are now tied for 4th, right? The split in itself was looking like Giants were going to be 4th even before that result. Maybe if Fnatic keep losing, there was a chance to catch. But with the context of where we are, looking forward, back to Group A play, what are you looking at for yourself and for Giants?
I mean, beat everyone. I mean, even though we're like 4th team and maybe we're not that good, but we're definitely going to work hard and actually try to beat everyone and get playoffs, no matter what.
All right, well, hopefully you guys can pick up a few more of those wins. Memento, thank you so much for talking to me. Congratulations on the win against Origen. We're going to head back up to the analyst desk with Stress and the boys.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. Obviously a tough interview. A win today, though, for Giants is an important win for the standings. Giants, you heard Trevor talking about it, tying for that 4th spot. They do currently own the head-to-head, and I believe the game difference against Rocket right now. But there's been so much movement at the bottom of the table right now. What's the most influential thing of the week for you guys?
I think Giants just still improved, though. Like, even that, yes, it sucked, right? I think we can all agree that it wasn't the ideal scenario. But in the end, they still have improved their early game a lot. They're still in control of their own destiny. Yes, they would have had maybe a game buffer extra, but these guys can easily beat the team below them and even challenge Fnatic right there. So, like, it's all within their grasp still. I think they just need to round out the edges, play the right comps against the right teams. Because I personally like these, like, greedy, all-in early game comps when you play against bottom tier teams. No. When you play against, not against good teams, but if you play bottom tier level, like in the context of this, in the context of this particular matchup, what they played today, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's just, especially when you play against like bottom tier teams, they're normally bottom tier because they like miss fundamental elements of the game, normally including closing the game. So you don't have to all in on these like early game comps because they're not naturally, snowball teams on like the bottom, or else they win 50-50 of their games. So that's why I'm not a big fan of like the all in early game. But I will say, yes, so far Giants' progression has been very noticeable. He was mentioning even when they're like taking the Baron, what they're thinking of doing next. Yeah, in that game, for instance, they had a really big lead, and they weren't, diving tier 2s or diving like inhibs. They were literally waiting for Baron to spawn and taking it. So I think they're understanding the game a lot more than these like other bottom teams, and that's like good growth for at least next split.
Is that the kind of pattern? Because we've seen it a lot in these bottom of the table games where they go later. Is that the pattern that these teams should be playing for? Like, have some aspect of late game within your gameplay and don't completely focus on like snowballing early, or do you think that that's kind of going for that all-around comp where you do have some of everything is just going to kind of not be great at one particular facet?
I mean, I'm just thinking, if I have to draft, like, just to win against, like, a bottom team and I'm drafting, I would pick some Mondo late game stuff. Because there's just, they make so many mistakes, so you don't really need, like, the early game insurance, because you have this late game insurance where they don't play late game that well, they're not in the scenario that often, and you can kind of capitalize on that with, more late game comp.
Yeah, but then you're also coaching a lower tier team. If you give them later game scaling picks very often, I think, do you agree then that they're probably like not going to win lane? Like late game is generally associated with like losing lane, right?
Yeah, well, not necessarily losing, but you don't want to take like fights early. You know, like
Yeah.
on Ezreal, he's not necessarily going to lose the lane, but you're going to buy
In
tier.
lower
yeah,
tier Ezreals lose lane.
Yeah, but
Good
you're
Ezreals
going to
don't.
buy like this tier, and then once you buy the tier, you're going to like chill and just Q poke. You're not going to all in. And yeah, maybe them understanding like, don't all in right now. You don't have great items would be a harder concept, depending on like, you know, the
But isn't
players.
this coming from the same probably that was, if I'm coaching a lower tier team earlier in the show, you said I'm going to teach them the first 10 minutes of the game and teach them well. I think if you draft like an Elise Renekton, teach them the first 10 minutes well, you teach them how to actually dive a champion, get a lead. I mean, that might get you more benefit because...
Well, see, the difference is I would teach them the early game first, for sure, if I was coaching them.
Yeah.
For some reason, if I wasn't coaching them, but they were like, I hired you to do one draft, I'd be like, all right, guys, we're full late game, man. Let's do Nasus Vigar and just survive.
Infinite scaling,
just
try and get
scale
super late
forever.
game. It's an interesting thing because I think the week after IEM, a lot of teams got shown how to play against some of the best teams with the Raptors, the influence that those early jungle paths have. We've seen that kind of stop, or at least be figured out by the teams. They're these kind of one-shot metas that come up that everybody's playing around Raptors for 2 weeks and then everything changes. Like, is that even something bottom-tier teams should be concerning themselves with?
I think that's not important. I think it's like, you know, when you get it to more fundamentals, like you know how to play early game, you don't have to like tell your team what they're supposed to do, then yeah, like you fine-tune it by being more efficient, taking the Raptors because it gives more XP at level 1, stuff like that. But if you're just like, you know, gradually getting better, if you fit this in because you're a jungler who really cares about efficiency, then sure. But this isn't something you should like press on your team. Like you really need to understand this, you know, specific meta of starting Raptors because you could play around it and not be at a huge like deficit or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamentals are obviously communication and the fundamental, and which is really hard to implement but very easy to spot outside of a game, is that plays are just not planned out. Like playing in the moment, nobody's communicating like, this is my plan in the next 1.5 minutes. Does it fit your plan? Because we may have something different in mind. Like so often you'll see a jungler pathing to top side. Right before he gets there, the top laner will push out and try to base for items. Like both of these guys have a great idea, you know? One gets a lane lead from a nice base, the other guy tries to set up a gank, but they're not on the same page. Like earlier, like we saw Origen set up a dive top. Equalizer goes out, Equalizer drops before Wisdom gets there. Wisdom then, I don't know, he's dancing around a Maokai or something, and then he dies. And then suddenly what should have been a clean dive and a snowball play ends up backfiring into a complete throw.
I want to turn our attention from the bottom of the table and coaching there to maybe the top of the table, because a lot of the times, you know, we see G2, H2K. I asked Paravival this about Misfits and what they'd have to do to beat G2. Where do you see a team like H2K? I'm going to start with you, Mitch, because otherwise probably kind of gives you the answer. What do you think H2K need to do to actually start taking games off teams like G2?
Oh, we've already talked about this. You need to stop greeting in the late game, for sure. Your players need to stop shouting in fights. Because they go like, go, 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 go. And then there's nobody that says, can we actually alter this call once it's in motion? No, like once H2K late game launches a call, the train keeps on going. Like it doesn't stop for anything. Like Odoamne will dive the backline, the enemy top laner will dive your backline, and at that point, it is just praying whoever wins. Is that somewhat accurate, probably? Or am I just a charlatan?
All right, well, number one, teamfight war cries are a necessity in League of Legends, all right? If you heard Flash Wolf scream, you would understand. If you heard, yeah. So I think that's fine. Maybe everything else you said was correct. Maybe.
I think probably he's just remembering back to his days playing in the NALCS with Zuna. Because that guy, speaking of war cries,
come on,
that guy was... The whole building would shake.
Yeah, I wasn't even on his team and I could hear him. Like, I know who they're going for in this team fight, guys.
I wonder who they're targeting right here. But on a serious note, probably, like, what is the... Without sharing too much, what is one of the, maybe one of the things you already fixed? Like instead of saying what you're going to fix next, what has been something you've been working on, say, 2 weeks ago with H2K, where you now see noticeable improvement?
I would definitely say, I mean, you brought up like the team fighting, like greed and stuff. I would say that's improved a lot.
I would say that too.
And we haven't gotten to show it that much, so I wouldn't say we're done fixing it and I'm not going to look over that next week. That's definitely going to be a big focus of mine for analysis. But I don't know, I think that was like the most obvious one to me. Like, you know, I heard them team fighting in comms and no one was yelling to dive and everyone was like, we could play this slowly. You know, like Nuclear wasn't just getting dove and everyone just left him and said bye-bye. You know, so things were a lot nicer in team fights from my perspective. So I was really happy with that.
it's not only just fighting against the top of Europe that we've got to even start thinking about, right? Because you mentioned playing against Flash Wolves, and the international stage obviously is on everybody's minds as we close in on MSI. We saw the European meta not work so well. IEM, I mean, G2 got to the final, but what does Europe as a whole need to focus on now when we look towards an event like MSI?
That's it's a hard question, and there's no easy answer. Because
otherwise, we'd be winning Worlds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If we knew it right that quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, the meta, knowing if it's right or wrong it's really kind of, there just has to be more work done, and there's no guarantee we'll figure it out. Because if you remember, 2015 Worlds when lane swaps were a thing.
Oh, EULCS was big.
And EU had this like really dominant lane swap that was just the best way to do it, but Korea had this different one. And, in Korea, no one was getting huge advantages or anything. It was just a kind of even like agreement, like we do lane swaps this way. And then when Europe went over to Korea to boot camp, we showed them this way, and they got destroyed in lane swaps every single scrim was, 2K gold lead at 10 minutes. We'd eventually lose because they're better. But they still were just doing it wrong because their meta was wrong. And no one in LCK was changing it. They just kind of agreed, this is the way we play it. So it's really hard to tell in Europe, like, are we playing it correctly now? Because no one's really challenging it and changing it. Everyone's agreeing and just trying to perfect their style instead of, throwing a huge wrench in the whole pick ban.
I think that's interesting because it has that weird two-way street, right? Where we've started picking up, Europe was later to the Ziggs as an adoption for bottom lane, whereas like LCK were playing it from week one. So there is always kind of that swap of information that we see. I find that really intriguing.
I think it's always worth, at least when you see an outlier in terms of meta, to consider the strengths and see why it came to be. It may not necessarily fit within the local meta game, but I think it's always worth considering. And there's just always you just always need to have an open mind, because if you look back to the start of LCS, like Varus wasn't even that high priority. Yeah. A few things did change, but not to the degree where he is now permaban on like red side constantly. So like there has to be a champion right now with a certain build and a play pattern that nobody has discovered. Some guy right now is sitting in gold. It's like, I found the new best thing. Pro players, please listen to me. It is actually this. Same with like the way Blue Ezreal eventually came to be, right? Like some guy finds that build and it works. We just need to always keep an open mind. I think a similar example is Malzahar support. Like people asked me this in the past. I was like, nah, you're trolling. This champion is useless. And then somebody showed me like, no, if you max Void Links, you're actually an AP carry in the bot lane. And I was like, turns out I was wrong.
Yeah, well, we got to keep an open mind about, meta and things, but we'll be closing in our focus next week a little bit more because we're celebrating everything in the lofty part of the Rift as Top Lane Week heads to our schedules for the entire week. There's a lot going on for Top Lane Week. Head over to eu.lolesports.com for more information on upcoming interviews, educational content, and on Friday there's a very special treat as we're bringing you a Top Lane-focused companion stream with Odo Amne and Soaz, which you really don't want to miss.
Yep.
It's going to be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to that, Mitch.
I'm really excited for it. I pitched the idea of a top lane stream because bot lane stream went very successfully. Everybody was on board, and then the official decided to cast it, so he'll be taking that one. No salt there at all. No. Definitely excited for him to bring that, because I love like any lane-specific streams as when we're paired with having smart top laners that also having personality that is worth looking into more. Like, Odo Amne very well. I think he can be very funny if he's in his comfort zone. So I really hope we get to show more of that next week.
Well, talking about top lane laning phase will be definitely his comfort zone, so he'll be happy about that. I do kind of hope, like, unlucky that it's like two super tanks top that do nothing. So there's just like, what do we talk about? Like, you're not allowed to trade in this lane because you won't kill him. I kind of hope that happens because it'll be funny, but I kind of want to see like interesting top lane stuff happen too.
Well, let's take a look at the matches that are actually going to be on the focus as Group A and Group B go back to fighting in amongst themselves. You can see Thursday we kick off Origen versus Vitality. Then later on in the week, H2K Unicorns. That's going to be a great series. Look at those Friday series. G2 Misfits. Oh, that's a top lane matchup that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. H2K facing off against Unicorns. I think it's a good timing. I think it's a good moment for H2K to play the Unicorns, because there's been progression, and the Unicorns, they're still quite stagnating. I think are you happy that you face them this week, or would you rather even wait a few more weeks more?
I like it right now because kind of Misfits was our first kind of test going towards like playoffs, like how our prep was like paying off because we were doing much more hardcore prep for Misfits. So the same is going to be for EULCS. Like we get our second test a week later. So it's going to be really good to get it out of the way now and figure out like what was wrong this time, what was right against Misfits and stuff like that. But hopefully the G2 Misfits matchup, I actually hope G2 doesn't underestimate Misfits because like we did 2-0 Misfits, but they were a really strong team. So if G2's going into this thinking like, oh yeah, H2K easy one, we can beat H2K, so we should be able to beat Misfits, I think it's going to be pretty rough.
They also have a bit of a buffer, so this could for us be the first time that we see G2 experimenting, and that could also spice up that matchup.
Yeah, very interesting. The G2 players even saying themselves, I think H2K are stronger. We did see that in the games this week, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out on the Rift next week. It's time for us to log off for the evening. Thank you very much for joining us, Prolly, and thank you, Mitch, for being on the
You're
desk.
welcome.
We're going to be back on Thursday at 5 p.m. Central European time to kick off Week 8, top lane week of the EULCS Spring Split. Playoffs in Hamburg are on the horizon. It's sure to be an explosive week. We'll see you then. Good night.
Wisdom repels up into the air, Sartorius tanking up the turret. Now Origen are running for their lives. Run up to safety. Nahun saves Wisdom's life, making their way in. Dragon's going low, looking for the bomb. Stolen! Giants get their first dragon.
Next time, do the shot. Drake, don't farm camps. Do Drake.
21 minutes and no champion has died yet until Peke gets sniped.
Round warp into Hourglass does it safely. Now Nahun's the target. He gets pulled backwards as the tower goes down. Origen, they're late. They're sloppy. It's messy to the fight.
Nexus turret 1 and 2 are down Origen. They are routed. They cannot defend their base. And Giants take down Origen 1-0.
Wisdom's going to use that Dragon's Rage kit to buy some time. First blood easily picked up by Knight.
Keep going, keep going. I can kill 6 with ult. I can take flash. I can double, You're taking. I got him. Nice. Wow.
It's a 1-for-1 until Hustler is killed. Nahun puts the hammer down, flashes forward, kicks EQ backwards, and it's a double kill for Nahun.
Run. No, they're reload. Don't worry. Please recall.
Nahun's got mana for days and he can keep firing those shot blasts. Knight will be the target. The hammer to the skies. Nahun gets one.
Ghost Blade. Oh! The Lunan's echo.
You poke?
Elder Dragon's going on flash. Oh, he's solid! Memento gets it!
Wisdom still looking to kick them away. Super minions onto the Nexus, and after one hell of a dramatic siege, Origen even up the series 1-1.
Slightly awkwardly placed, we jump to the river, Nahun's in trouble, he's coming to support, but Knight pops him, and Flaxis turns it around.
Can win.
Flash dredge line, Peke looks to go down, that's the 4th kill of the game for Giant. This is now the Memento looking to set it up. Ha! You can't escape Meowkai. Origen, Giants, they kill Sartorius on the side lane. It's a killing spree for Knight as Tabs gets dumped. Double kill for Knight.
The Nexus turret is the focus. A 5-man giant stack put a huge foot up the bottom of Origen, and Giants are one step closer to the